Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 20 of the Simpa Life Podcast with me, Simpa Carter. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and cohort, Mr. Maka. How are you today, sir?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. we are joined today.
I am here. I am present. That's about it. There you go.
That's the minimum requirement. As we said when we had Fiona Gilbert on the other week, I'm determined to make you smile by the end of this recording.
I'm smiling, but, I need to be smiling internally.
There's nothing we can do about that. We're all dead. We're all dead inside, and it's a human condition. And with that said, let's get on with the show. So today we are joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Trev Coleman. He is a former IT technician who used to work within the military industrial complex. Ooh. Trev has been involved in and worked on projects with Teesside Cannabis Club, who he helped take Michael Fisher to the police to help get them some legitimacy and to gain them ground within the industry. He's worked with Bud Buddies, Feed the Birds, the National Cannabis Coalition, the UKCSC. He's helped out quite a bit on Durham City Cannabis Club events, and he is currently working as a researcher with the Seed Our Future campaign. Trev, how are you today, sir?
I'm getting kind of young, and how's yourself?
I'm good. I'm glad you've joined us today. It's under, I suppose, not the best of circumstances that I would have wanted you on, but I suppose by the end of this, maybe our guests will think it is good circumstances. So for the people that are not obviously in the know currently, you had an incident with Durham police recently. Would you mind sharing your story?
Yeah, basically 4 guys tried to decide that they were going to break into my house. Now, being here on my own and practically crippled the way my spine is at the minute, because I've got a spondylolisthesis or something that they call it, which it's very, very painful. Any sort of weight on my left foot at the minute has limping around like a gimp. So 4 guys trying to break into my home all on my own. I'm an easy target. So the first thing I had nobody to be able to get in touch with to come down and help us out with. So the first thing I did was call the coppers. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the policy towards cannabis in Durham is one of acting on complaints only. Now, I've never had a single complaint against me in the several years that I've been grown. All of my neighbours know what I do. And the coppers decided that rather than go after the 4 little scroats that were trying to break into my house, they decided to put me in the cells for 10 hours and completely trash my house. Now, during that 10 hours, I asked them repeatedly to give me evidence that would validate the charges. Because, as you know, with the Seed Our Future document, what we've done is to send freedom of information requests to every force across the country, to the CPS and to the Home Office to present that evidence. And there's not a single force in the country who have been able to provide it. The CPS say that they can't provide it, and the Home Office say that the evidence used to enact the Misuse of Drugs Act 71 was destroyed. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the reply that we got from the Home Office is actually documentary evidence of fraud, because they've told us that they've destroyed that evidence, but that evidence is it's a World Health Organization document held by the UN. So, which we have found, it's if anybody who's listening to this, if you do a quick Google of WHO/APD/56, you will find a document that every single person across the world has been used to criminalize every single person. How they've gotten away with it for so long, I've got no idea, because everybody I presented that document to have all said that it wouldn't stand in court.
I think what they mean is it wouldn't stand in court today. Clearly 60, 70 years ago, it stood up quite well.
But it's not being presented in court. This is the thing. Whilst I was with Teesside, one of the things I did was to go looking for the evidence that the government used to legislate for cannabis as a Schedule 1 substance. Now, the first person I called was a lady called Sweetie Sahani. She was, at the time, she was acting as Ron Hogg's personal assistant. Now, I asked her if she could direct us to it, and she said she couldn't. But Ron might be able to. So later that night, Ron Hogg calls us. I ask him the same question. Can you direct me to the evidence that the CPS used to legislate for cannabis as a Schedule 1? And he told us he couldn't. When I asked him why not, he said because it doesn't exist. When I pointed out to him that surely if that evidence doesn't exist and somebody was to ask for it in court, that case would collapse. And he agreed with us. Ron Hogg's ambition, to the best of my knowledge, was to actually end the war on drugs. Now, he's given us the key to it right there. It's simply challenging that scheduling system, because the whole scheduling system has no evidence behind it whatsoever. It's like it's basically like people are being convicted but prosecuted on trumped up charges.
Well, it kind of works by the sense that the CPS doesn't have to present evidence if there is a guilty verdict. So I've discussed this quite a few times with people, but it's actually a subject that we're going to cover in a future episode with the London Cannabis Film Festival. And it's about how media's depiction of, say, raids and drug culture really plays in our subconscious. So when you're sat in that cell after a gang of 10 guys in uniform have taken your door off, destroyed your property, screamed and terrorized at you, and then you've been thrown into a cell and then sat into this room, that you're meant to go, I'm bad and I've done wrong. So when they go, oh, if you just admit guilt here, we'll give you this life sentence, they don't have to present that evidence. So the majority of convictions come through people being talked into the system. And as you are seeing, and as others have seen as well, it's quite evident that unfortunately a lot of the judicial defense system is actually in support of this same, let's call it an elaborate con, for lack of a better word. Because as you say, there is, to some and lesser degree, informed consent within these chambers, that they know this, they understand their own procedures and their own protocols. And it's something that you point out quite a lot, that the police are not doing their due diligence. But the same is true of everybody in every office with this. So when medical cannabis legislation came up in 2018, rather than MHRA and all these other departments and everything having to then look to the documents to then create a rational legal apparatus from it, they simply tacked something else onto this fraud.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's industrial scale fraud. Every time I see a bust on Facebook or whatever, where the cops are all bragging about what they've done, that all feeds back to John Ehrlichman's quote. We could smash up their communities. We could vilify them on the news night after night. It's all part of it. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So all of it is fraud. It's industrial scale fraud and effectively terrorism. Because we have a document done by a professor, I think it was James H. Mills is his name, from Strathclyde University. The IHO's actor. In that, second page, there's 2 paragraphs that outline exactly what's going on. In the 50s, it was agreed in international treaties that only state governments would have control over anything to do with cannabis. So whereas we're all sitting watching the likes of Theresa May and Jacob Rees-Mogg and James Cleverly and all the rest of them, who are all cashing in on cannabis, that's because it was all written into their treaties. Now, in that document, it also talks about how each country would have to come up with a situation to uproot wild plants. Now, when they talk about those wild plants, that's our plants.
It's that are going around their control.
Exactly. So the police, when I think that they're supposed to act in the public interest, that's part of their remit. But then when it comes to cannabis, they're not.
Yeah,
I can produce many documents that would prove this, and not just from the drug side. I'm talking about everything else. Yeah. I'm talking about environmental factors. I'm talking about fossil fuels. I'm talking about everything else. Drugs, that is just one application out of 50,000. Sorry, Mark, what were you going to
say? My internet connection apparently is unstable, but what I was going to say was, what was that address again? Because I'm going to actually pull this up because I want to have a little noodle off of it while you're jib-jabbing away.
Which one's that, sorry?
The document you said it was the WHO, is it? The WHO had the
WHO.
Yeah.
Macro.
Yeah.
APD 50/56.
56.
IHO as actor is in the chat as well for this recording. So for the people that are not aware, the quote or part of the quote that was spoken of before by Trev was from John Ehrlichman, who was Nixon's chief advisor at the White House for drugs. He was a drugs. I don't think he was a drug czar, but he was the chief advisor for drugs. But yeah, it still holds true that very much that we are vilified, we are demonized for our activities, but now they have a mechanism by which to co-opt our culture, to co-opt our community, and to commodify this plant from underneath us while keeping us very much under the boot of capitalism.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's, you see, this is the thing that, again, it pisses me off. We talk about, they're all talking about protecting their economic system. Yet, the economic system that we used to use, right now we're in a system of debt-based scarcity. So the rarer something is, the more expensive it is. Whereas when we used to use this crop, used to use cannabis as a resource, all of our British colonies were all founded on a foundation stone of cannabis, so they could farm everything that they want. Effectively, all the colonies of the British Empire formed a resource-based economy. I mean, it makes no sense to me that we're living under debt-based. The only way debt-based makes any sense to me is that we're all assets. We're not free people. We're slaves of the state.
It's control, is it not? But I mean, we're kind of approaching this. There's been some interesting videos done by, I think, Russell Brand of all people recently, discussing the situation going on with India and farming and sort of big data collection. And it seems to me that the powers that be with cannabis, whether it be with food, whatever commodity or resource it is, they're seeking to map it to create a resource-based economy, but where they're the gatekeepers to who gets access to the resources. So rather than them controlling scarcity, they now get to control access while at the same time appearing to have that liberty, that freedom, and to somewhat degree, I guess, a socialist endeavor.
There's nothing socialist about anything that a Tory's
the illusion of socialist, do you know what I mean? Because they can then pitch it as we do. You see how Tory rhetoric works. We see how the spin doctors pull these things. They take with one hand, but they get to put it in the press as if they're giving with the other. We just look at job figures at the minute. The job figures were so badly butchered by the Conservative Party that they managed to get record employment by making sure the person had a minimum of, what was it, an hour a week?
Yeah, exactly.
And that qualified as an employed. But then if you got 0-hour contracts, you had do not compete clauses, which meant you could have a 0-hour contract that gives you 40 hours one week, gives you none for the next, and you can't go and get another job.
Yeah, again, we're told that we've got record employment, and yet council taxes is the leading form of debt in the country. Meanwhile, you look at somewhere like Colorado, first year of legalization, they actually bust their state budgets by $66 million.
Yeah, we've seen
that's full employment.
Yeah, but we've seen the statistics and the numbers come out of America. Trying to pull the number out of my ass. I think it was like 300,000+ sort of jobs were created in the past few years in the American industry. And that is only still in quite fringe because of the restrictions on licensing and the individuals who have made themselves the gatekeepers and the power masters, if that's even a term. They've managed to restrict the market to be able to keep a monopoly and a controlled price and availability of products. This was something else that I sort of wanted to discuss with you, was what we're seeing with the CBD industry at the minute in the UK. And we're seeing this bottlenecking via the FSA being given the power to regulate. So we're going from quite a broad spectrum CBD market into a very novel, isolated one.
You see, I hate that word, novel. How is any of this novel? You know what I mean? There's one reference that literally everybody in this country knows off by heart, right? Now, everybody's seen the movie Oliver Twist, right? Oliver Twist comes up to the guy in the orphanage with his ball, Please, sir, can I have some more? Gruel was made from hemp seed. It's not another food. This is your original food. What we used to give to prisoners and orphans as slop is now a multi-billion-dollar dietary fad.
Yeah, but what they're arguing is the novelty comes in the isolated compound, which is why they're seeking to deal with
if it's isolated, then yes, it is novel because we should be full spectrum.
But this is how they've done it. Language is powerful, and the English language is quite a diverse one. We have an incredible amount of descriptive terms, but yet we still use the same term for often binary things. And we then have a thing of, say, like when you use something as a proper noun, you can create a different definition for it in the same way that you brandize a word. So when we talk about, say, medical cannabis, it's a different thing. When the establishment is talking of medical cannabis, they mean the distinction that they've defined. Yet when we speak of medical cannabis, the average person is actually going, oh, the therapeutic properties that are potential in all cannabis. Do you know what I mean? So they've then weaponized this language, and they've been able to shoehorn themselves into the common lexicon and into our debate around this, so that we've become binary and polarized, when actually we all want the same fucking thing. They've just got us muddled up in the language.
It's dilution. That's the term I use to describe it. It's just dilution, and they do that exactly to the extent that you've described. So the more you dilute it, make it more specific, the more people go, hold the fucking phone, I don't agree with that. And all of a sudden, you're at each other's fucking necks, and nothing gets done. Make it boring, make it like super diluted my waddy or fucking Kiora or whatever the fuck it is. And people are happy with that shit for some fucking reason. They don't fucking want to actually take any further action than that. Do you know that kind of way? Because they're just completely... Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing a few years ago when everybody started going on about medical cannabis. I hate that term, medical cannabis. It's pharmaceuticalized cannabis is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So your extracts and all the rest of it.
I'm glad to hear somebody else use the word pharmaceuticalized. I've been trying to coin this as a word for quite a while now. It's been in articles for years. To hear it come out of someone else's mouth really makes my heart beat.
That's exactly what it is. It's been processed and made into a pharmaceutical product. So effectively, when they do that, they do make it a narcotic. You know, it's...
Yeah, it's a novel narcotic compound. It's a patentable product that they can obviously, basically within reason, do what the hell they want, as long as they meet the criteria for their continuation of a license. But it's interesting because then if you look at, say, Epidiolex, there are obviously quite a few people who've been making a stink about the artificial strawberry flavor that is put into it to make it more palatable for children and its potential links to being neurologically damaging.
Again, I mean, these people really don't give a shit about health. You know, I mean, it's just a matter of getting the product out there. This is why GW, they can export and make absolutely millions, whereas in this country, I'd very much doubt Epidiolex would get far because you've got a lot of decent growers out there who know what they're doing, who know just as much as the people who work at GW Pharmaceuticals. We have a very, very diverse community and a very intelligent community when it comes to all of this. This is why so many people are starting to fight back now. I mean, to go back to what you're talking about with the CBD thing, it's Prohibition 2.0. And unless people actually stand up and do something about this, it's going to carry on the way it has for the last 100 years. Mm-hmm. And we are not in a position where we can wait another 100 years. And drugs aside, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about the environmental factors. I'm talking 325 kilo of atmospheric carbon for every ton cultivated. Mm-hmm. We're at a point where fossil fuels are killing absolutely everything on Earth. The only resource we have that can replace that energy system is oil. Is weed, sorry. Now, there was a film I was watching the other day. It was filmed in Banff in Aberdeen in 1983. It's called The Local Hero. Anybody who's watching this will probably know the theme tune by Mark Knopfler because it was what Alan Shearer used to come out to, the theme of The Local Hero. And there's a part in that where you've got a very young Peter Capaldi who's talking to an oil representative from the States who on the beach in Banff. They say, oh, can you imagine a world without oil? Yeah, it's the only game in town. I mean, we wouldn't have any cars. We wouldn't have any perspex. We wouldn't have any polythene. And this is like 1983. So 40 years later, all of that stuff is all over the place. They're walking along pristine beaches with beautiful skies and all the rest. All that place will be absolutely covered in bloody oil refinery and all the rest now. In fact, I know this because I've worked up there. I actually installed the data center for BP in Dice back in 2008, I think it was 2008-9. Yeah, and I can see for myself what's happened to Aberdeen in that time. I know for it's going to be on its arse before long because of divestment.
Yeah, we're starting to see. Obviously, the reason that the fossil fuel industry got so far and has been kept afloat for so long is they are massively subsidized by governments around the world.
5.3 trillion per year in global subsidies.
There you go. I mean, can you imagine if we put that money towards research and development of bioplastics, of ethanol, of graphene into quantum computing via using the cannabis graphene, supercapacitor batteries? I mean, there is so much more.
I've already got my plans all laid out for that. I mean, I was at a farm a couple of years ago with Guy Coxall over in Northern Ireland. He was a beef farmer, and he was talking about how he had a 300 kilowatts anaerobic digester on site. A 300 kilowatt anaerobic digester, just working off all of your waste, that's a 500 light grow.
Wow.
And that's off grid.
Yeah.
An off-grid 500 light grow being run on waste. That's also that anaerobic digester. It's also generating your methane and all the rest of it that you need to keep your building running. So again, it's just why we're not tapping into technologies that we already have. The only reason we're doing it is simply because of that 5.3 trillion per year in global subsidies.
Well, I think, sorry to cut you off a bit, Simpa, there. I think there is a tipping point and it will come. But the dither and delay is to allow the currently established, say, global conglomerates to shift focus so that they maintain control of resources. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that'd be a scarcity, man. Yeah, if you've got a choice between filling your car on oil from the Saudis that they've ripped off from the Yemenis, or you've got a choice of filling your car from your farmer's field, which one are you going to take? This is true.
But I bring up the point because Coca-Cola, say, for instance, have just released their paper bottle. A paper bottle. Isn't that lovely? Coca-Cola. Way, paper bottle. It's like, we've been talking about bioplastics for how fucking long? Do you know what I mean? It's only facilitating those companies to maintain the position that they're in, I think.
Entirely that. I mean, yeah, if you look at it, Coca registered, I think, as the largest single polluter on the world. Give it a quick smash into the search engine. Yeah, okay. I'm pretty sure that is fucking true. But yeah, it's exactly that. So we were talking on a previous podcast, I think, about Shell now becoming an energy company rather than an oil company. And so they're divesting, and so they're taking subsidies from taxpayers that's getting given to them for them to research and develop other novel technologies that allows them to continue to capitalize on this market for decades to come, rather than the idea of us looking at self-sustainability, rather than us looking at being off-grid, rather than us looking at having our free options.
Yeah, something like that. Why put that sort of money into Shell when you've got a guy down south in Robert Murray Smith who's doing some absolutely incredible stuff with hemp-based graphene?
Because they're not part of the boys' club. They don't shake the right hands. They don't pay the donations. They don't drink the glass the right way.
They don't have the right handshake. That's what it is.
Exactly, yeah. So because they're not involved in these decision making, they're not within the periphery of the perception of the powers that be. I mean, we've always got to remember that yes, some people can have truly maniacal intentions, but ultimately everyone's focus can only ever be so wide. So they can only ever see so far. So because of their own perpetuation of the prohibition paradigm and their actual their belief from overindulging in the Kool-Aid means that all they can see is the danger of cannabis and the risk to their communities and their culture and the society and the economy that they've created.
Just to clarify, Coca-Cola are the world's #1 plastic polluter, rated by Break Free from Plastic. Nestle are in there, and Pepsi as well.
Everybody talks about the harms that cannabis is supposed to cause. But I can tell you right now that if you want to go onto YouTube, there's a 30-second video from on global temperature anomalies from the UN. Now, if you watch this video and you think about the 3 dates for prohibition, there's 1937 when prohibition started. So you start the prohibition there. A little over 20 years later, you start the war on drugs in 1961. So you've now moved from prohibition to eradication. And in 1971, hemp was added to the single convention. So again, that was prohibited all across the world. So we've taken part of our biosphere that sequesters 325 kilo of atmospheric carbon, it enriches our soils, all the rest of it. And in the meantime, we've started deforestation. We've gone into we've burned gigatons of carbon-based fossil fuels. And if you watch this 30-second video, those 3 dates are highly relevant. From 1937, you start to see the temperatures go up. From 1971, they shoot up from there. 50 years of burning gigatons and deforestation and all the rest of it. It's had a massively detrimental effect on our world in general. We're not just talking about crimes against humanity. We're talking about crimes against all life on Earth. And when you consider that in 1925, Henry Ford commissioned a study that said with only 6% of land for industrialized cannabis cultivation, America would have been energy independent without the need for fossil fuels. So all of your going back to your plastics crisis and all the rest of it, every single bit of it is a direct product of prohibition policies. And the latest one I'm now seeing, and it's one that I've kept an eye on for a few years now, is that we're currently in thermohaline shutdown. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what thermohaline shutdown is, go and sit and watch it the day after tomorrow. We're on the verge of an ice age, and just look at what's happened to Texas.
Yeah. But again, this is one of those. Oh, sorry, go on, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, well, isn't that the fucking point of, say, the 2030 when proper Irish there, no H's. Climate target, they were saying, 2050, which is too far away. In actual fact, we could sort this out in a handful of years. But like that was the whole point prior to COVID, wasn't it? Do you know, that kind of way was to try and kind of go, right, we have fucked this planet to a point where there's an impending ice age due. Maybe not for us, maybe for our fucking grandchildren or something like that, but it's fucking coming. Yeah, I'm exaggerating. I'm just being flippant for the point.
I genuinely don't think it's going to be in our kids' lifetimes. I think it's going to be in ours. We've already been told, we were told just a few years ago that we only had 12 years to turn things around. Mm-hmm. We're now 9. We've only got 9 years now.
Well, yeah, we've seen the. I mean, fuck. Dolphins appeared in Venice. The water started to clear up. You had wildlife return to lockdown. The first lockdown globally did so much fucking good. The images that were coming out of China and shit with the factories shut down were phenomenal. People were saying, like, I didn't know I lived near mountains. I've never seen them before through the fucking industrial fog. People were able to actually go out and experience shit. So we need to then have kind of this global conversation around what is productivity. If it's excess quarterly growth infinitum, then I think many people have discussed this in films before. The only thing that replicates like that is a fucking virus. And then if you look at the impact that humans have had across the face of the planet Earth, we have kind of spread like one. But the difference is we have the intelligence to know what we're doing. We have the capability and technology. What you spoke of before with at that farm, what you saw, that is being applied, just not allowed. We're not allowed to do it. So look at fucking British Sugar. British Sugar got the contract from GW to grow 46 acres of cannabis, right? And the reason that they did it was because they were diversifying to try to figure out how to deal with their excess gases and heat and waste from the production of the sugar beet. So they originally went onto a crop of tomatoes. They failed horribly on the tomatoes. And then, I can't pull his name out my ass. Philip, who's the guy, British Sugar?
Paul Kenward.
Paul Kemp, thank you. Paul Kenwood obviously then got a meeting with somebody, got invited into something, and then before you know it, they're up and they're growing cannabis in there. So they're actually then making an excess profit from saving from their waste product. So we can integrate these things together.
Oh, we can, yeah. You gave us the perfect example of one not a few years back when you came back from the States. You mentioned it to Kevin when you interviewed him, about how he made the same face I did, like, why are these medical and recreational facilities dumping all of their sticks and stems, not doing anything with them? You know, those sticks and stems straight into an anaerobic digester. All your waste straight into an anaerobic digester. But everything's off. It's
clearly intent. It's clearly intent. There's nothing else there. Do you know what I mean? Why else would you not do it? Do you know that kind of way?
It keeps the left hand from knowing what the right is doing, and that way they get to know what both hands are capable of without us lot getting together and go, actually, if we vertically integrate this, we can grow a crop, create our packaging, create our labeling, can create inks, can create everything from this product, then create the product itself. Do you know what I mean? There's no waste product. It's all beneficial. And then if you use harvest techniques, I mean, if we could actually get to the point, say, you turned up at a site, grew some real strong quality industrial strength. I hate using the word hemp, but hemp cannabis, hyphenated there. To remediate the soil, use that material to then build your fucking your dry house and your facilities and everything else. You could then use that nutrified soil to then grow your crop. To then, do you know what I mean? You could then generate and create power cells from it with fucking cannabis graphene supercapacitors, store the energy then from on site with using these, and it's entirely insular.
But that's what I'm saying. It's that the intent is still capitalist. It's not environmentalist. It's not environmentalist. If the intent was there properly, we'd be doing it. We would have the facilitation that we need. Do you know that kind of way? Everybody would be fucking doing it.
But again, it comes back to that economy of debt-based scarcity. Now, if those recreational and medicinal outfits are using all of the sticks and stems to dump into an anaerobic digester, then they're not getting the energy from an oil company or an electrical company. Yeah. You know, so it's simply about keeping them going, and it's being massively, massively detrimental. Because with legalization, you've got all of these massive operations on the go who are all getting powered off power stations, coal-fired, oil-fired, whatever. It's got a fossil fuel component. I mean, for me, I can give you a perfect example of my area. Just down the road in Teesside, there's a power plant. I cannot remember the name of it offhand now, but they've actually got an anaerobic digester there that they're using to basically burn wood pellets from the Amazon or Canada or wherever. And this place is literally a stone's throw from Applied Graphene Materials, which is the leading lab for developing the tech in the country. It's a stone's throw from Teesside Cannabis Club. And just up the road from me here, I've got the Healing Cauldron, which is a CBD company. And up in Concert, there's Thomas Swan, which is an international graphene distributor. All they're missing is the source materials, the sticks and stems.
It's even more frustrating that you then consider there are two quite large hemp farms in Yorkshire. You know, so in the northeast, we've got quite a lot.
Two, I only know about one.
There's East Yorkshire hemp, and is there not a Yorkshire hemp trade?
Yorkshire hemp, we're just dealing seed and all that, so they don't deal in farming.
Right, but there's still potential for infrastructure. If you then consider the richness of the northeast in terms of its farming heritage, you then look at Brexit subsidies being withdrawn with our removal from sort of the EU. It's now is the perfect time to integrate all of these things together. As you say, every piece is there. It just doesn't seem that we have anybody with the competency or the willingness and desire to say, let's arrange these into something meaningful.
Again, but we have a historical and cultural precedent for that as well. Now, in fact, Macca, it's something that your country's still suffering from. There's a time in our history called the Reformation. What the Reformation was, it was Henry VIII couldn't get a divorce from the Catholic Church.
Right.
But what he did was to form the Church of England and Protestantism.
Mm-hmm.
That effectively cut us off from all trade with Catholic Europe, which was effectively the Brexit of its day. To get around that, what Henry VIII did was to mandate that all farmers had to be farming so much of the land with hemp. Otherwise, it could get fined up to 6 months' wages.
Yeah.
The reason being that we were farming we were using it for literally everything. So, as I said before, we're using it for gruel, we're using it for ship sails, for ropes, for clothes, even the gunpowder in our cannons. Every ship in the merchant navy, including ships like that everybody will know that fought at the Spanish Armada. You've got the Golden Hind, you've got the Ark Raleigh, even the Mayflower. Every single one of those ships, wherever they went in the world, they had to have a cargo of hemp seed wherever they went. So that would be the first crop that they laid down, effectively making our British colonies into resource-based economies. So the Mayflower, which if there's anybody American listening to this too, we gave you cannabis, right? Us Brits sent it to you.
Shout out, actually. We actually have quite a building audience base in America. We have an audience in Texas, an audience in New York. So shout out to you guys.
Yeah, well, we give you the weed on the Mayflower. So again, everything, it all comes down to our economic system of debt-based scarcity. Why you can't get political progress on this, because that era of debt-based scarcity means that people like Matt Hancock can be given backhanders to get all kinds of silly bloody contracts out.
It's criminal. It's cronyistic. It's
corruption. It is literally corruption all the way through.
It's all the C's.
Yeah. It's criminal. It's crazy. Anyway, But so the point is interesting because I don't know if you've seen, I've just released the latest Last Week in Weed update. And in that, there is 2 gene companies in America that have got together. And basically, they've been given an exclusive worldwide license to license the auto-flowering and day-neutral genes of cannabis. So we've known for quite a while that if you interbreed, I suppose it's old terminology really, but it works for explaining this, sort of any of your modern cannabis strains with your spindly, hardy as hell ruderalis, you can interbreed them and you can get these day neutral qualities to be present in the plant. And so what that means is that it doesn't have to wait till it passes the 12-12 tipping point for the plant to then go into flower. So what this company is effectively looking to do is they're saying if any breed or any company out there wants to send us their genetics, we will splice around, piss around with the genes, produce these auto-flowering versions of your genetics, and then license them back to you. So then they'll end up owning all the shit. But I mean, if you look at it from an industrial point of view, this kind of makes sense. If you could make all air quotes hemp strains auto-flowering, but still hardy as hell, still tall as shit, you could still get all of that material in a shorter burst of time, and you could run the crop all year round.
Yeah, but again, it's like it's who's at the steering wheel there. Well, the idea is good.
That's what I mean. Instead of scarcity, what it means is we have abundance, but they're the bottleneck at the top that controls the majority of the cash. That's all they're interested in. They're not interested in terms of what the bottom looks like, as long as they've got a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, you see, you're talking about doing it with hemp. Now, for me, I wouldn't. People talk about hemp as an industrial strain, and the only reason it's regarded as an industrial strain is simply because grows long and thin, and it doesn't have much branching on it. Now, anybody who's ever worked with wood, if you hit a knot in a piece of wood, it's pretty hard to get through. And it's the same with weed. When it branches out and you hit those knots, it makes it hard to work with to go through the decorticator. Now, hemp, if you were to farm an acre of hemp, you're talking 200 to 300 gallons of seed oil per acre. 300 to 1,000 gallons of seed oil per acre. But if you remove the THC cap, that acre then becomes 20 to 30 times more productive. If you want to tap into something like modern growing techniques such as hydroponics, anybody who's watching this now, if you want to do a quick Google of what was his name, Heath Robinson, he grew a plant called the Cheezel under 1,500 watts of light on hydroponics. Now, on one plant, he pulled 76 ounces. Now, imagine something like that pollinated for seed production for industrial applications. That's going to far outdo anything to do with a plant in a field.
The issue is as far as they're concerned, is THC-rich flowers are dangerous. They jump off the plant, they attack children in the night, they jump down alleyways and get women. You know what I mean? So
again, the whole reason for that is productivity. It's that, again, that era of debt-based scarcity. They don't want an era of abundance. That era of debt-based scarcity where you're only getting 300,000 gallons of seed oil per acre rather than, I don't know, anywhere from up to maybe 20,000 gallons per acre.
But I get what you're saying. But if it's then these alternative cultivars that are, again, I hate the spectrum that we're talking about here, but for argument's sake, let's call it cannabis fucking on this side, hemp on this side. Do you know what I mean? So
I'm going to stop you right there, right? This is an argument that annoys the hell out of me. Now, as I was just saying before, the British Merchant Navy going all over the world, planting hemp seed all over the place. What we now know as hemp, that 0.2% stuff, that is an aberration that didn't come around until the 60s. It was bred and sort of around about then. Before that, every strain of cannabis that we refer to as hemp, cannabis is a Latin name. It's all hemp, the whole lot of it.
Wait, that's like us sitting in America saying that cannabis is marijuana. It's not. It's a misappropriated term. All cannabis, by definition, is cannabis sativa L, as you were saying. So that's what I was saying. I'm having to use this because it's the same as medical cannabis. Hemp is a capitalized pronoun term that means something else. It means low THC cannabis. That's the common usage that they use for it when they're describing it. So that's what I'm meaning in this conversation. So what I mean is that they won't let us grow, air quotes, cannabis, as in THC-rich cultivars of cannabis sativa L, because as soon as you go over that arbitrary threshold, they become valuable as a air quotes recreational or other commodity. And they want to control that other commodity. So what they're trying to do by split them down is they can then look. There's a few companies out there as well that are trying to perfect mutated strains. There are some variants, some cultivars of cannabis that will actually produce zero cannabinoids, just terpenes and fibrous material. They're looking to try and produce them as they're going to be the modern hemp. Do you know what I mean? Again, cannabinoids, at the end, look at it. The medical world moves towards synthetics and biosynthesized cannabinoid production for CBMPs, and then as the recreational air quotes market then moves towards the control of extracts and bud, then the fibrous material, rather than them vertically integrate that and allow us to do it from one thing, they would rather break these things down, become the gatekeepers and license holders of everything, own the proprietary technology, own the patents, and then we're allowed to play, but only at that point. I mean, look at what's happening in Canada. We discussed this with the guys from High on Homegrow last week. About they're trying to create this gene library in Canada. So they've created a thing where 1 seed equals 1 gram. Over possession in Canada is 30 grams. Ergo, you walk down the street with 31 grams. If they decide there's aggravated circumstances or you have other prior convictions, you could face potentially 5 years in federal prison. So what it appears to be is with raids and everything else that are on illegal farms, they're holding those genetics. They're looking at them because they're becoming valuable. So these then are ending up in pharmaceutical laboratories where they're finding all of these wonderful profiles and everything else. They're then creating patented products while then patenting the fucking cultivar, keeping it away from our access. So that means every time we're getting raided, I mean, the same thing is we heard it rumored in the UK quite a few times about Leicester University and Leicester Police working together to catalogue the strains that they're finding in raids. When they own it all, then they'll give us back the 50 or 60 cultivars that are not useful to them. They'll kind of go, there you go, these will just get you high. That'll do. You can have them.
You can have.
It'll cost you.
You can have Northern Lights.
Again, I don't understand how they can do something like that whilst they've got 21,000 varieties shot in the Felsets seed bank.
Well, you know as well as I do that even with one plant producing, say, 2,000, 3,000 seeds, within that is 3,000 variants. It's the same as like sperm. It's such a diverse and wonderful plant that there are so many variants and branches that they'll go off on that if you then interbreed them and play with them, you can end up with some amazing qualities. And the best breeders in the world have such a second nature to this. And the scientific sort of CRISPR approach, as it were, the gene editing and the creation of these genetics so that they can produce them to figure out the profile to then be able to synthesize the product. I think it's fucking dangerous because yes, it moves us towards most of the pharmaceutical industry being cannabinoid based because we're starting to understand that the endocannabinoid system is the largest regulatory system in the body, but it still doesn't give us autonomy to use it as a prophylactic. It doesn't give us autonomy as an ability to just frankly just fucking enjoy it, to hit a good fat bong and watch a shit movie and giggle.
Yeah, but again, it's part of those. You've got to remember, according to them, because we use drugs or we use cannabis as a drug, then we're immoral people. And that's why they can come into our communities and vilify us on the news every night and all the rest of it.
It's the idea as well of, say, like the perpetuation of misuse. I mean, can you imagine if they did this to alcohol consumers?
Have you ever looked at what the Home Office say is misuse under the Misuse of Drugs Act?
It's use, isn't it?
No.
What is it defined as?
According to the Home Office, what constitutes misuse is possession, cultivation, and anything to do with sales. Nothing whatsoever to do with any sort of consumption.
Well, yeah, this is because they can't make it. It's the same reason if it's not illegal to be high on drugs. It's illegal to have the drugs in your possession. If they're inside of your body, having been ingested, it's fine, which is weird, though, because then they can fucking cavity invade you if you've then shoved drugs up your ass, which is weird because they're then inside you. So if you're not then consumed them.
Well, if I've shoved them up my arse, definitely not consumed them. Well, it's not the way that you use that sort of activity, you know.
No, but there was a big movement of people who will use ecstasy via their anal cavity. There are people who will use FECO. It's because of the membrane, how you pass the
blood-brain barrier or something equivalent.
You pass the liver or somewhat. It goes the other way, so you get higher faster apparently. But that is the thing. It's the same as sublingual. You know, when you take something sublingually, just analingually, I guess.
I've got a really good story about something like that, but I'm not sure if I should tell it on here.
Were you blowing cocaine up someone's arse with a straw?
No. I'd
changed the names to protect the innocent or guilty.
Right, I'd made some oil, right, and I'd done it into little 2.5 ml syringes, half and half, so 1.25 ml of oil to 1.25 ml of coconut oil. There's one of my mates was on his way to see, he picked up 4 of them. He was on his way to see one of his mates. Now, the lad he went to see, he is now a heroin addict because the NHS cut him off from the drugs that he was on for a broken spine. The only thing he could find relief from was turning to heroin. So my mate's turned up with this bunch of oil. So he's given one, here, give it a go, see how you crack on with that. Whilst he was there was a lass who was going through similar sort of issues with the NHS as well, and she'd never tried it, so she wanted to have a go of it. Well, my mate didn't bother to say anything about dosing, did he? So this is her first time. She's been taking morphine rectally for exactly the same reasons what you're talking about. Passes the blood-brain barrier straight into the bloodstream. So her first attempt at cannabis oil, 1.25 gram, remember. She's gone home, started off the bath, got herself comfy on the city, took the full 1.25 up the poop chute, and 3 days later, she gets woken up by two coppers who have had to break a door down while she's lying there in a pile of her own filth and still doesn't know what the hell is going on. I thought we were going to be the first people to kill anybody with cannabinoids.
Yeah, it just shows the whole thing of tolerance, but also the increased potency through different ingestion methods.
Yeah, but I mean, forgive the assumption, but that sounds like a negative interaction of something that might actually have been in the blood at the time. Like, I don't know what it might have been, some sort of pharmaceutical.
Well, if there was also morphine in the body, then it will have amplified. Cannabis obviously doesn't suppress respiratory systems, but if you do, they often warn that you shouldn't take FECO if you take things that do suppress respiratory functionality and slow heart rate. Because what cannabis can do is amplify the effect of this. Also, CBD, if you take CBD, it can turn off the enzyme in the liver, cytochrome P450.
Correct.
And that stops the metabolism of these drugs. So you can actually then stop that one day and then be taking CBD or whatever and think that it's all good, keep the thing backed into your system, take someone else that's then a suppressant and drop yourself down and risk an overdose from a low dose of another substance.
That's just it. I mean, there are some documents I have seen online for this exact reason, to see if there was any known interactions, say, between statins and CBD oil. And two of the most prominent ones have known interactions that cause a compounding or exactly what you've just said, a strengthening of the effect, which can lead to problems. But then they have other statins that pretty much do the exactly the same thing for the most part, and they don't have any sort of known interactions. And that was quite comforting to find, but it was a fucking nuisance to find. A couple hours job kind of a thing, and even at that, it was sort of inconclusive because the intent isn't there. So that kind of way. We've bottled this up. This works for condition A. Sorted. Fuck you. Get out.
Well, there's been no responsibility as well within the supplement market or the wellness market or whatever it has been thus far. But it's interesting if you look at the FSA's own sort of wording of this. They've said the reason that they want to regulate CBD as an isolate and a distillate product is they are worried about the comorbidity and interaction of other cannabinoids with pharmaceutical medications. Which, again, what we've just discussed, it's the opposite because THC doesn't seem to affect this enzyme.
Right. So, what you've just done there is you've just dropped the police in it. Because that for me strikes me as protecting the pharmaceutical companies, which means that the police aren't acting in the public interest. Again, they're acting in private and political interests, and that is state-sponsored terrorism. That is not policing.
Yeah, I'm sure the establishment would argue what's good for us is good for you. Trickle down economics and what.
There's no such thing as trickle down. Money gets pumped upwards.
Yep, very much so. Very, very.
I seen a report the other day that the 1% in London made the same money as the whole of the north of England.
That does not surprise me in the slightest, to be fair. It really doesn't. It's interesting. So Durham, as we know, is I still believe we need to check the statistics on this, but it was a couple of years ago ranked as the third most impoverished region in Northern Europe. There is I live in possibly one of the worst parts of the inner city of Durham. Not that I rate it as worse, as they do, in terms of crime and economic depravity and number of people who are unemployed, etc. They're not bad people. They've just been housed in this way and left to fucking their own devices, which was not.
Again, though, remember that pack meeting that me and you went to, and the one thing that I brought up that they were all missing was jobs in industry. And literally every cop in the room was sat there going, they've got a massive cannabis industry in the States now. Why don't we do that? So you see, it's just a matter of framing it for the coppers to understand it. And they do understand it. So why the hell they're going out and doing what they're doing? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're shafting themselves.
Yeah, but that quite clearly comes down, it trickles down. So all of that pushback by the coppers will eventually get tunneled into the system that they fucking designed to fucking. I know what you're gonna say, that they have their own fucking responsibility to act in their own in way.
No. Yeah, you're wrong. What I was going to say is that it does. It's not about with cannabis. It's not about the money going up, because what it does, if you've got a crop right in your doorstep that is worth 6.3 million per acre under legal prices at the minute in the States, or $8.2 million in California is 6.3 million quid here. Now, that acre of land also has what's known as an economic multiplier of 3.5. The economic multiplier is what the money that's generated in the wider economy. Mm. So, yeah, me or you go out and we spend 20 quid on a bag, right? But that 20 quid, because you're going out and buying papers, bongs, munchies, that 20 quid suddenly turns into an extra $70 on top.
Yeah,
it's money that's going into the wider economy. That's just why you've got, like here, as I was saying before, your council taxes are the leading form of debt in the country, despite us supposedly having record employment. Meanwhile, you've got somewhere like Colorado that has got record employment, and they're busting the state budgets by $66 million in the first year, and they shifted around about $1 billion worth of weed. Last year, they shifted $2 billion.
Yeah.
So $2 billion, economic multiplier of 3.5. That's effectively another 7 billion spent on top across multiple other industries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, it gives you an idea of sort of what we could have, but I still think that ultimately they don't want to give us access to that kind of system, because again, it's the British. They've worked hard to reinstitute the class system since the end of the Second World War, to really fucking enforce it.
Yep.
And it's getting to a point now where it's almost internalized in a lot of people. They kind of accept their position and go, well, this is just life. I'll hunker down and I'll deal with it. But so then you've got people that are operating within communities that are dealers, that are cultivators of all types of substances, that actually supply more of a benefit to those communities than a lot of the corporations that are represented within them, because their money stays in the economy. So this is the argument that I make against us going for a full corporate legalization model, is that even if we get all these jobs and whatever, yeah, you get a nice bit of your salary, but the overall millions in tax is being siphoned off from that company and not paid in this country.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see it all over the place. The amount of the money laundering that's going on in this country is absolutely ridiculous. But that was what Brexit was all over. It was all about the rich not paying their share. So the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg can still put his money into Bermuda and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Interesting. I saw Bermuda's looking to legalize cannabis, actually.
Yeah, it was Cayman Islands. I was actually thinking of rolling Bermuda. Barbados, I believe, and they're another British island.
So they're going to need the same royal assent that the Canadians got.
Yeah.
Which then just draws more hypocrisy to why can our crown authorize other nations to have economic stimulation and have an opportunity for prosperity and giving their youth a future?
Other nations. Like, is there not an island off the coast that isn't a fucking is it a nation? I guess it is a nation. Is it a nation?
Yeah, they're still red part of the Commonwealth. I mean, the Commonwealth is mainly symbolic, but I mean, I suppose there is still the legal apparatus of it, so we still do keep a lot of the trade within that, I guess, and that is controlling scarcity.
I meant around us. Is it Jersey or Guernsey?
Yeah, but they're all on it. Jersey, Guernsey are going. Guernsey are on it, Isle of Man.
I mean, how can you look over the water and go, it's fine over there?
Well, they have slightly.
I can fucking see it.
They have better autonomy in terms of laws and sovereignty. So it's. But again, though they're being allowed to work, in my opinion, because of the same reason the states are allowed to pop off one at a time. They're trialing slightly different models to see which is more beneficial for the elite and the powers that be. Mm-hmm. So then when the vulture capitalists fly in, the boys that have got a couple of trillion in each of their pockets through their collective investments, and then just go, well, we'll have it now. Thank you for setting it all up, but we'll take it. Thank you. And then, like I said, the tax from these corporations will not stay in countries. So we are better off with fucking dealers and the violence that's created by the arms race of the police raiding and destroying, the neighborhood guy that shots a couple of 20s and keeps everybody going. And then when he gets done and the next guy comes in and has to go harder and the next guy and the next guy, until you end up with a bunch of fucking serious organized criminals that are willing to chop each other up over fucking 15 plants.
Again, that comes down. I mean, Keir Starmer, that prick. I mean, he's come out and said that all that sort of stuff is why we shouldn't legalise. Victoria Atkins, she turned around and said that was it legalisation and regulation just encourages gun-toting criminals, which, let's face it, her and all her ilk are bloody criminals. So that regulation has worked out well for them. And let's say, and we already know that they'll bump people off. I mean, just look at David Kelly and all the rest of them. It comes back to our economic system all of the time. Now, so when the miners strike, during the miners strike, everybody felt it right across the country. I mean, I'm old enough that I can remember I was part of all of that. But during the 70s, there was a strike in Ireland by the banks, and nobody really noticed it, simply for the fact that the pubs took over running the economy. The pubs knew everybody, so they give them credit and all the rest of it. All the money was getting moved through all of the pubs, and up until the banks decided to go back to work 6 months later. Now, again, you've got the same sort of thing happening in Colorado. It's because they weren't allowed, the money that they were making from the cannabis industry, it wasn't allowed to go through the banks. It was all going into the state, which is why they bust the state budgets. The banks are just siphoning off money all over the place. It's all money laundering with them lot. Get it into the Cayman Islands so it can make some 1% are rich.
Mm-hmm. That's the only true solution, really, is fucking hit the delete button on tax havens. Fuck them. Make them illegal. You'll see people fucking panic then, and it won't be the 99%.
I think
this is why I've always said with this, we're never ever going to see change from the top down, but it can't be forced from the bottom up. And for me, that the Seed Our Future document is where everybody should start, because at the end of the day, unless the prosecution services, the police, the Home Office, unless they can hand over evidence that cannabis meets the criteria for Schedule 1, or that it's a controlled substance in the UK, which we already know that they cannot, then they're defrauding every single one of us.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, if we can get that test case, that gives us the best option, because nowhere that we have seen anywhere that's legalized or decriminalized, I'm air quoting for those that are listening, is actually gone back and retrospectively torn up the previous legislation. They've amended it. They've created new legislation to tack onto it, to control it further, to still restrict it, to still, for some reason, operate within a half-assed model. I mean, if there was any equality to this, cannabis would be regulated like alcohol tomorrow. It would be deschedulized. It would just be a drug that is widely the fuck available. It would be advertised on television. It would be sponsoring major events. The money from it would be literally slushing around the economy, and everybody would have an opportunity to play, from craft brewers, as it were, craft cultivators, all the way up to sort of big boys,
Yeah, well, it's already kind of happening here. I mean, just look at, I don't know what you know about your football teams, but in Scotland, there's one that called Hamilton Academicals. And Hamilton Academicals play at the Hope CBD Stadium.
Mm-hmm. David Beckham as well, right? He got it. He's
another one. I've actually met the owner from Hamilton Academicals, who owns Hope CBD as well, because they're all part of the Scottish hemp and retail producers.
Yeah, the Scottish are not being daft at this point. I mean, if they can get a chance at Indy too, I think I'm off to
Scotland. As soon as the Indy ref comes to, that's it. I'm off out of England. Stuff this place. Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, the English are very, very small-minded people that have no idea of. I'm pretty sure that it's just full of village idiots. This bloody place.
I'd like to phrase it a bit better than that, because I think it's just like, as an Irishman, I've got to fucking pick my words carefully here. But you know, in Ireland too, the majority of us are victims of systemic abuse in that regard. Yeah. That's the reality of it. It's not idiots. It's not. You know what I mean? You are a product of your environment. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's a trauma response.
Yeah,
it is. It's entirely that. It's a victim that has been beaten that often that when the abuser is being calm, they accept it. They're almost even joyous within it. And we've been spoon-fed this idea of supremacy since school for most of us. We don't get taught about the atrocities that we committed in the world. We didn't get told about us effectively starting slavery. We didn't get taught about colonization. We didn't get taught about anything.
Yeah.
What we got taught about was the fucking, so there's Tudors and Henry VIII did some shit, and then you got a church, and then he killed some bitch, and then we got on with it.
And fucking God help you if you don't wear a poppy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're indoctrinated, and it's ingrained, and most people, we're manipulated by the black mirror in our rooms. It's there. And then now with the advent of fucking mobile phone technology as well, we're constantly being spoon-fed a worldview. So most people don't have that opportunity. They're working fucking every hour that God's, horrible expression, God sends them. Do you know what I mean? They have. They're then getting minimum wage, just barely being able to support themselves, cover their bills, and feed their family. And then when they do, the last thing they want to actually do is think about how hard they're being fucked over. So the cognitive dissonance builds and builds over years. Yeah. So then by the time you end up 20 years into a job you hate, you've raised kids that no longer talk to you, your wife has left you, you're still paying off your fucking mortgage, you're just full of bitterness, you're full of rage, you're full of hate. You were told it was the foreigners, so you voted for Brexit, and that didn't fucking help. You were told that it was Labour and Corbyn and the socialists, so you voted for the Tories, and that didn't help. Do you know what I mean? So again, you get so just wound up by the whole thing that I can understand and I can empathize.
It's abuse. It's a fucking abuse.
Yeah, so we've all got PTSD from the fucking way that we've been treated in this country. So the English, we've got this warped worldview, and we really need this opportunity to just breathe. But we have the boot of Fleet Street in terms of the Main Street press pinning us down to the floor, and we are being funneled this shit by the neoliberalistic elite so that all we see is their worldview. So we're debating this spectrum of politics that is only their spectrum.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the actual needs of the fucking people.
Yeah, and this is just
about corporate interest and economics.
Exactly. And it's usually housed, and it is in Ireland, there's a rise of it, under some distorted sense of nationalism. It's like, you're gonna damage the British flag or the Irish flag. You're taking the land away from me, and you're looking around where I live. It's not a fucking an affluent place. It's quite fucking poverty ridden. Do you know that kind of way? But it's like you can still have that hatred for immigrants, and you look out your window and the abuse, the political and systemic abuse it's evident. It's out your fucking window. It's right fucking there. If you want to be a proper nationalist, you need to fucking start thinking about the climate. You need to start thinking about the fucking land that you're standing on and how best that works. And the people that are fucking around you. Do you know that kind of way? Because if your community is suffering, you cannot be called a nationalist. You cannot be proud of your country. You can't. It's impossible. Sorry, I'm getting really fucking hot.
Go.
But it's the truth of it, though, man. It is the truth. It's like, I deserve to be here. If you fucking deserve to be here, the place should be fucking affluent. You should be growing everything. Nobody on your street should be at a food bank. Nobody. Do you know that kind of way? And like, honest to fuck, stop being told how to celebrate your country and start fucking celebrating it.
Exactly that, brother. Fucking exactly that. Do not ever apologize for that kind of passion.
I'm getting
But yeah, just out of curiosity, have you ever heard of a guy called George Segerson?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, hang on. Am I thinking of the right person? I might not be thinking of the right person. No, I'm thinking of. I'm thinking about a musician.
No, he's not
Bob Seger.
No, he's not Bob Seger. George Segerson.
Right, sorry.
George Segerson. You've heard of The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Array.
Mm-hmm.
George Segerson in 1866 wrote his version in County Tyrone.
Right.
So you've got a 19th century snapshot of the Irish hemp industry right there.
Well, funny enough, just to keep it on the Irish side of things, and hopefully there's an increased amount of people from Ireland listening after my various complaints on social media, but it was a lad from Limerick that brought it, my hometown, that actually brought it from India and labelled it as having medicinal qualities. How about that? A lad from William Brooke O'Shaughnessy, right? How about that? A lad from Abide a Kid. People from Limerick will know what that means. But no, it's funny how like those small key bits of information are just forgotten about. Do you know that kind of way? It's fucking madness.
They're not forgotten. They're hidden. They're obfuscated from our view. It doesn't mean that they are not there. Do you know what I mean? It's the same as like what does it say? That the light of truth can never really be extinguished. It can be dimmed and it can be hidden, but it is always there. So when the account of this comes to be written and when the war is finally fucking over, not through some corporate half-assed parley with the people to give us the crumbs of their fucking pie, but an actual end to this where we're all given free reign and autonomy to operate to the fullest of our ability within this field, then we will have that fucking freedom and that autonomy. But to get back to your point on nationalism of what you were saying before, exactly, a country is conceptual. A country is an idea, and a country in its entirety is made of its people. So if you believe that you are nationalist because you want the country to face your ideals, you are clearly misguided. If you want your country to succeed, you should have the humility and the fortitude to understand that it has to be representative of all peoples and their ideals. Your worldview is not a measure of what is correct in the world. You may have your morals, your ideals, and your goals, and your desires, and your wants, but these are entirely all that, your own. So you cannot inflict that onto others. It's a form of violence for you to try to say to another that they should conform to your worldview and operate and live within your society. The base rules for this that we decided thousands of fucking years ago was the idea that, oh, don't kill him or her, don't sexually assault, don't rob, don't. There's a very few handful of things that if you look at the George Carlin takedown of the 10 things, he takes it down to one. He says it's a form of violence. Do not commit a violent act onto another that you would not want onto yourself. If we then operated by that basis of consent, none of this fucking shit would be happening. But they've got us to think of nationalism and go, it's the pride of the flag. The flag can't touch the floor. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? When you really think about it, you've got people dying in the street, freezing in the winter. You've got millions of people queuing up outside of food banks. You've got millions of people that can't fucking afford heating or food. They have to make a decision between it. You've got no hope of prosperity for countless successive generations. And that's the thing that we're going to lean on is going, well, yeah, but the flag's in the right position. It's hung up correctly and we're following the procedures and whatever. It's all bullshit. Tradition, as we've discussed, is entirely just fucking peer pressure from dead people. If we want to create a new form of nationalism, it's not exclusive, it's inclusive.
Yeah, and it's not fucking Keir Starmer's version of it either, which is a blending of two colors. Get the fuck out of my face. That's faux nationalism. You've seen that shit. He's blended the fucking blue and the red together to make purple. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Keir Starmer is entirely a Tory creation in the same way that Tony Blair was. I mean, look at what's happening now. Tony Blair now works for the Conservatives. He's the lead for the passport vaccine that they're going to create for fucking COVID.
War criminal.
It just entirely a war fucking criminal. If there is no justice with this is what you see when you saw like when you remember that Hillary Clinton and Trump and that were fucking mates. Do you know what I mean? Most of the presidential candidates and the people from each fucking side of the aisle, they dine together. They go to the same parties. They shake their hands in the same way. You get what I'm saying? They're in the same clubs. It's all playing that same spectrum of politics. It's Plato's allegory of the cave. They control the shadows that are cast for us. And very few of us, each one of us that gets out into the cave, the problem is that most of us are so mystified by that world that when we come back to speak to the others, we operate in a different way and speak a different language. Do you know what I mean? It's like trying to explain to a fish water. They can't understand. What do you mean? No, governments are good things.
Yeah.
They're there to do the best thing possible. They sit in chambers and come up with ways to make everything better. And that is the rationale that goes through these people's minds, because the cognitive dissonance doesn't allow them to go, well, all of these problems are either, if they're religiously inclined, that's God's will. Or it's the other idea of, well, these people should just pull themselves up by the bootstraps and work a bit harder because they've never experienced poverty. They don't understand the trap of it. That once you drop below a certain amount of money, you're fucked. You are fucked. Unless you can then somehow get above that and get a saving, you can't anchor your way, get your way up from that anchor.
A perfect example of that is Prince Andrew. They're all protecting the nuns.
While they're slating the couple that have decided to actually get the shit together and try and get away from this fucking materialistic cartel.
All these bloody the flag shaggers in this country, they're not giving it. I don't see any of them around bloody Buckingham Palace were complaining about Prince Andrew, but they're quite happy to go to a court where there's a bunch of Asian grooming gang.
Well, yeah, where is Tommy Robinson in this? You know, Stephen.
Exactly.
And Laxley. They don't care for this. They really don't. It's the illusion. They have to perpetuate their own narrative. So it's basically, if you are of this neoliberalistic ideal, you want to operate within that democracy, you get to go, where do I fit on this spectrum? And if you look at the history of MPs moving parties, they're really not founded in their ideals. They want to get elected, get into a position, and then they get bought and moved around.
That's because we don't have a democracy anymore. We've got a one-party system. It's as simple as that. The Labour Party and the Tories are effectively one thing now. Well, yeah. And it's about time people start to realise that we need something new that's going to wipe all of that away. I quite like Ian Lavery. He's come out at the end and said that we need more working class people in Parliament. That's what we know what's happening on the ground.
Yeah. The problem is... Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say the very nature of Parliament, though, the rahs and the yahs, the jeering and the pomposity and the fucking pageantry of it all is designed so that we look at it and go, oh, fucking hell. It's designed to make us feel uncomfortable. It's designed so that it's not inclusive for us.
Again, this is why we need more working class people in there, because...
We need a northern Parliament.
Let's face it, someone like Keir Starmer is never going to pull Boris Johnson up in the Houses of Parliament, not the way somebody like I would or you would. You know,
we wouldn't last long in the House of Parliament. Would the right honourable cunt opposite please answer the fucking question?
Can he actually give an honest answer rather than lie to us?
But this is what modern politics is. It's creative lying. It's obfuscating the truth. So you've seen it time and time again with Matt Hancock, who personified this recently.
DJ Casper. DJ Casper, slide to the left, slide to the right. That's what it is. Here's the question. Slide to the left. That's what it is. It's sidestepping. It's just glorified sidestepping. It's formulaic. You can see it. You watch. If you spend a small amount of time watching these interviews, and it's the same process. And, anytime there's an awkward question, Theresa May did it. Boris Johnson does it. There's coaches for this. There's coaches for this shit. Just
kind of go back. No. The question was, and then they'll answer that question, or they'll answer a different question, or they'll start to answer it.
Yeah.
Miss out the answer and then go to a conclusion and move on, or they'll just time it out.
I remember. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that at least some of the reporters now, of all sort of ilk, I guess, have got in the habit of at least trying to call them up on it and go, will you answer the question? Will you answer the question?
Yeah, but they're never hard-nosed enough for me. It's like I would just be the biggest, stubbornest cunt. On the no, I would be. I fucking would be. I'd be like, you haven't answered that question. Bring it back. It's like, oh no, bro, I have answered your question. Fucking, you fucking haven't answered it. I'll stay here for 45 minutes until you get past this fucking question. Not one of them has the fucking genitalia to do that.
But they've designed their system. They've manipulated and groomed it into a position where they can use obscure rules. Oh, the 1785 Act of Parliament says that no member can stand for more than blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they'll be like, you can't be in the chamber without a hat, or some bollocks they'll use.
Somebody was told the other day online. Did you see that? Did you see that the other day?
No.
Some I think it was the Deputy Speaker of the House went full prim proper and was like, some lad was at home, obviously, he's working from home, and he had a nice jumper, nicer than anything I have, right? He had a nice jumper on, he was chilling out, he was going, grand, yeah, here's my question. And then your mom was like, we're not going to go to you, you're not dressed properly. I was like, he's not in his fucking pajamas. Do you know that kind of way? What the who the fuck give you the right to fucking say that shit? Do you know that kind of way? How fucking dare you? How about you listen to what the fucking man has to fucking say? How about you react to that instead of what he's fucking wearing?
It also happened in New Zealand. There was a Maori MP went into New Zealand Parliament because he had a string tie on rather than a proper tie. They chucked him out. What difference does clothes make?
But that's the point, is that if you can't afford to wear the right attire, your opinion is invalid. It's everything is pay to fucking play. You know what I mean?
It's beyond that. Sorry, no, it's not beyond that. It additionally, just to sort of build on what you're saying, that comes down to schools, man. School uniforms. It's conformist. It's like you play by the rules that are set out in front of you, and do you know that kind of way, and you'll do it fucking happy. You'll do it happy because you're expected to do it happy. Yeah,
it's the psychology of it as well. Because then if you turn up in the uniform, they know, he knows to conform, so he's not going to ask too many difficult questions. They're going to play the game. They'll be controlled opposition, and they'll play out the pageantry in the play.
There's a reason. I've mentioned this before quite briefly, but there's a reason why you're forced through the channels that are created for you, and this goes all the way down. This is applied to fucking call centers. Do you know that kind of way? It's like you have to. First and foremost, the people on the other side of the phone have to conform and go through. They're only allowed to answer a certain set of questions, and then they have to guide you through all of these fucking hoops, no matter if you have all the information or whatever. And the whole thing is a fucking trope. It's a trope to control you, to annoy you, to get you off the fucking phone. Do you know that kind of way? That's the truth of it. And it's the same fucking thing that's happening on a political level. We live in a call center and you're the caller. That's what's happened here. And you're being fobbed off every fucking step of the way. It's like, I'll just connect you to this apartment, hang up, and then you're fucking fuming. Do you know what I mean? It's the truth of it though. It's just basically that design applied on a fucking political scale.
It's designed to disenfranchise all of us, our kind of people, as it were, and the people that then have our inclinations or our ideals or ideas. When they do get into this position, they are bullied and destroyed and removed from it. I mean, there's such a self fucking
perpetuating.
Yeah, self-perpetuating classism within a lot of the working class, that they're going, that we're not good enough to be up there. That we wouldn't make those good decisions, that we didn't go to the schools, we didn't learn what they learned. When in fact, it's the fact that we haven't learned what they've learned that would make us valuable there. They've all been channeled through the same thing, seen the same thing, read the same books, had the same thoughts, learned the same thing, gone to the same place and done the same fucking thing for a century. Where the fuck has it got us? What's happened for the past century? Where have we been? We have not been represented. We just really fucking haven't. And if you look at what's happened with COVID, with the sheer scale of people who've gone from middle class to lower class to working poor, the destruction that the fucking universal credit system is raining down upon people with benefits, there's more people than ever within that echelon. If you then look at the voting turnouts, the largest population of the largest group of people are the non-voters. Because these are the people that don't feel represented. So exactly that, if you could create a unified party, but the issue is it's all pay to play. So to get yourself on a ballot in an election is 500 quid straight off the bat. Then you're going to need money for campaigning. Then you're going to need money for adverts. Then you're going to need money for... So it's all pay to play. So by the time you then get that money, you have to court donors that will then go, I'll give you this $1 million, but this has to be in your manifesto. Or I'll give you this, but I don't like that. So don't push that anymore. Do you know what I mean? And by the time you've got your funding and you've got your team and your experts and everybody else around you, they've manipulated and massaged you into just another little thing that fits nicely onto their spectrum of neoliberalistic politics. And that's what's happened to every major party that's risen since. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Sometimes they get a little bit of limelight. Sometimes they get whatever, if it's pragmatic and useful to the powers that be. But the rest of the time, they are there to just grab the people who will fit into their nice little neat net. Whereas there is nobody who's just kind of gone, fuck this, let's represent everybody that isn't that. Well, so you can have right-wing ideals, left-wing ideals, and all the thoughts, but as long as there is that inclusivity and acceptance, you can create something wide enough that incorporates all of that.
If only we had somebody that would offer legitimacy in intent. If only we could have voted for somebody that would actually have given a shit about the country. If only we had that opportunity.
Yeah, you and Trev Coleman.
Of course. Of course.
But you saw how hard and aggressive the establishment attacked Corbynomics and his politics. And the way
from an ideal, from an image. Do you know what I mean? What we've just talked about, the normality, the cycling on the bike, the growing fucking in an allotment and eating, the putting on an extra jumper instead of turning the fucking heat on.
He's got pictures of drains. You know what I mean? Some of the things that they came out after him for, it's like, Jesus, this is the worst you can find on this man. He's probably one of the better people in the fucking parliament.
It sounds fuck to me. Do you know what I mean?
You start digging into a lot of these fucking we don't even just talk, just any politician really, and you'll start finding some dodgy fucking shit. People don't stay in power long unless they play the game, and by playing the game, they commit this criminality. They commit to this grand scale corruption.
This podcast has been a ray of fucking sunshine.
Well, I suppose let's add some optimism towards the back end of it. What's going on with your case with the police, Trev? How do you plan to sort of defend this?
Basically, my defence is going to be I'm going to be using the IHO documents. That's going to be my foundation evidence of how cannabis became a Schedule 1. It details all the political manoeuvring, all of the corruption, all of that. The WHO EPD 56 documents, that then becomes a supporting document, because I can show all of the racism, the political movement, manoeuvring and all of that in that document. And then the Seed Our Future document at the back of that covers the whole lot. So it's just a matter of giving me evidence. I want evidence to verify the charges. I want evidence that's going to validate what you did to me home, because they smashed thousands of pounds worth of equipment. They smashed every single light, leaving glass all over the place, soil all over the place. They smashed fluorescent lights. Now, fluorescent lights have barium and mercury in them that have to be disposed of properly. They just smashed them all over the house. It's absolutely, for me, what the police have done is an act of terrorism. So I'm pressing my own charges of criminal charges against every officer involved in the bust. So they've got terrorism charges, fraud, theft, blackmail, the whole lot's in there. I've also filed a complaint against the Chief of Police and the PCV, Steve White, because in October, we'd already done all of the FOIs right across every single force. Every single force was then served in November with the Seed Our Future document to say, look, these are engaging in criminal activity here. Here's your evidence. They've not bothered to act on it. They've not bothered to put that down to the officers below. But I know of at least another 3 busts in my area since mine. And it's like they're not acting on evidence. They're not one of them are actually going to do their due diligence. And I've seen this for myself. Whilst I was in the cells, I told one of the guys in the custody suite, I actually have an FOI response from your PCVC to say that they're going to hold the evidence that would verify the charges. His response was to say, that's not possible. Didn't bother to check, just turned around and said, that's not possible. Not one of them are doing the due diligence. It's trail horse mentality. I did this yesterday, so I'm going to do this today. Yeah. I've worked at their levels. I've worked in the military-industrial complex for a lot of years. I've even worked for the police at one point, GCHQ, the whole lot. I know for a fact that if I'd actually gone into a job without, say, a permit to work, a risk assessment, whatever, if I'd gone to work without a documentation to saying that I could, I'd be thrown off site straight away. Which is why I didn't. the way I've done things is to use their procedures. No, right. Well, where's your evidence to say that this is cannabis meets a Schedule 1? Where's the evidence to say that it's a controlled substance? They can't offer it. It's the Schedule 1. There's no evidence to offer that. And your claim of control, we already know that if one gang gets taken out, it's only another 4 hours before somebody else takes over. So where's your claim of control?
Yeah,
it's bullshit. I mean, the coppers who did my place, they found a box of chocolates that I was gifted a while ago that are obviously dosed chocolates. When I got home, there was all these packets had been opened up and they were all over the table and obviously getting stuck into them. So the coppers who came here, who are doing me for drug abuse, are engaging in drug abuse whilst they're here.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know how they're getting away with this. So the only way we do get it, that they don't get away with it, is us filing complaints and putting in civil claims against the coppers. This is exactly what I'm going for. I'm just waiting for them to tell us that if the charges get dropped, straight in with a civil claim. If they decide to proceed, great, bring it on. I'll see you in court.
Yeah,
but I want your evidence. And if you can't produce it, I'm bringing it with us.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. So if they bottle it and then drop the charges, like, does that sort of, do you have to start a motion by yourself then after that point to sort of go, well, I fucking want to see it. I fucking want to see it. I don't care if you're not going to fucking prosecute me. I fucking want to see it.
Exactly. Nice. Exactly. You say, I want to see your justification for what you did to my home, what you did to me. Unless you can produce that, then you've committed fraud. It's an act of terrorism because you're acting in political and private interests and not in the public's. And that is very, very easy to prove.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what the internal processing
commission
on their side is.
I'm going to give you a perfect example of that as well, because as I've been obviously in the last few weeks talking to my neighbours and all the rest of it, I've had 3 people turn around to us and say, well, why would they bust you?
But then you should be getting sort of character statements from them.
Which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. I've already talked to them. They're all quite happy to sign documents saying, yeah, this guy isn't an idiot. Yeah, he's actually talked to us about all of this multiple times. I mean even my neighbours, all my neighbours know exactly what I do, but I've never had a complaint against me. I've sat there and I've talked to them about all of this. I've even given them markers to the trade, the cannabis trade, which, I mean, they're 15, 20 minutes from me.
Yeah.
You've got the deer pen at Bishop Auckland Park, which was Henry VIII. And deer are the biggest predator for weed. They're absolutely going loopy for the stuff. And then down in West Auckland, you've got the Manor House Hotel, which was Henry VIII's hunting lodge. West Auckland's quite a historic area in any place, because it was also the location of the very first World Cup. It was also the home of the country's first registered serial killer in Mary Ann Cotton, which just goes to show the football widows up here are a bit vicious.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they try and get out of this, because ultimately, their options are kind of be naive enough to think that they can take this on. You get it in front of a judge who will then actually have to force them to answer the questions. They'll not be able to provide evidence, and you just go for summation, which means you'd get precedent. Or they're smart enough to know that they can't let that happen, so they have to drop the charges or have fucked up the evidence. But actually, we've logged the wrong number of plants or something like that, and that means that we're not confident in prosecution. They'll come up with some bullshit to skirt it away.
It's already happening over your way, Macca. There's 2 lads that I've been working with for a while, Stuart Glover and Phil Evans. Every time that they've gone to court, they've asked the PPS, Public Prosecution Service, to answer 3 questions. They want foundation evidence that cannabis meets the criteria for a Schedule 1 substance.
Yeah.
They want foundation evidence that it's a controlled substance. And they want foundation evidence for misuse. Now, so far, the PPS in both cases have done everything they can not to answer those questions. In Stuart's case, he's going to be the first one into court. the PPS were told by the judge to hand over that evidence, and they haven't. But so what the PPS have turned around and said that is that the PPS will guide the PPS in its prosecution. So effectively saying that they're a law unto themselves. So he's still having to go to court again, but despite the fact that the judge knows that they haven't handed over evidence, they've still got to go to court.
Yeah.
There's no evidence going to be a case to answer.
So for clarification, the lads are in the north of Ireland, are they?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know, because I don't know the differences between Irish and like Republic of Ireland law and
it's pretty much the same.
I figured it was.
I talked to a guy called Leroy from, I think it was Greenlight Medicine. I think it's Leroy. I talked to him a couple of years ago about a case over in Ireland with a guy who was getting done for $100,000 crop. And he was telling us that the legislation in Ireland is pretty much the same as Northern Ireland. You've still got, it's still Schedule 1 drug.
Yeah.
You've got, it's again, right, where's your evidence? That scheduling system is global. It's not every single country. So unless they can provide that evidence, they're going out industrial scale fraud.
Oh no, I have no doubt of what you're saying in terms of you're right. The scheduling is a global, but I mean the nuanced application is probably specific. Do you know that kind of way? I'm sure that there's very small little things that you'd have to dance around differently in the Republic of Ireland than you would have to do in the UK.
I think
take a CEDAW feature document and you adjust it for whatever country.
Yeah. That's what I'm basically pushing at. Is like I that's what I want to know. I just want to know it. I haven't a clue.
Well, the route would still stand the same if regardless of any legislation that has been tacked on since the 1977 Irish Misuse of Drugs Act or any subsequent legislation that affects it is still based on the 77 legislation, which is based on the international conventions, which are unevidenced.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue is more cultural prejudice is still quite a thing in the north and in the Republic of Ireland, because quite a lot of it was religious conservatism, but it's kind of that limited view to it when actually both the north and the Republic of Ireland could really have a booming industry. You know, they're geared for it. They really are geared for it.
Yeah, that George Segerson, he detailed it all in his hemp pamphlet in 1866. It's Jack Array's Emperor's Wears No Clothes, written 110 years before he did.
Yeah.
And another great thing about that not many people might know is Jack Array's Emperor's Wears No Clothes. The publisher was in Wallsend, my hometown. So it was because of us Geordies that everybody's got The Emperor Wears No Clothes.
How about that?
Yeah, small world, man. Small fucking world. Oh, right. I think my brain is fading, guys. It's been a very long day. I've enjoyed this. We'll get you back on again in the future, Trev, to catch everybody up on what the hell is going on, if indeed they actually budge. Again, I'm going to put this down.
I predict a delay.
I don't just predict a delay. I predict some very obscure fucking act or legislation that they're going to go, oh, because of this, they either nullify everything that we've got, or you just don't get that day in court. They will push it and push it back, hoping that either legalization kicks in first or some other thing occurs that means that they don't have to push forth with this. Because again, Durham especially does not want to be the police force that loses and sets precedent for home cultivation, because it for all it continues with Durham's sort of the steps of Ron Hogg and Mike Barton. It's kind of counterintuitive to the individuals who have inherited their thrones, as it were. Do you know what I mean? It's Durham has gone from being one of the most progressive, as you said earlier, we were led initially by complaints only. That policy seems to have been ripped up. A lot of the discretion we had around the drug use, around sex workers, around some of the more nuanced crimes, say of theft and stuff like that. The reason that the diversion scheme and stuff was put up was to protect the vulnerable. So you could commit theft, you could commit drugs charges, and they'd understand and go, actually, you're not a bad person. You're just, as we described before, stuck in that economic system.
You see, I think that's a lot of bullshit, because I know of a guy in my local area who's been done for burglaries, God knows how many times, and they put him on the checkpoint course. Mm-hmm. So even though this guy's got a record as long as he's armed, they'll put him on a checkpoint course. I actually knocked back the checkpoint because I've been told time and time again that the only way that we do this is in court. We have a case, but it's got to be done in court. So I knocked back the decrim and went straight for criminalisation. That's for the simple reason that I can't ask anybody else to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself.
No, and I think
I want to get a judge.
Yeah, I think anybody else listening would respect and understand that. I mean, you and I have had discussions about this for the past couple of years. We kind of said that it was going to happen inevitably to kind of one of us, and whatever happens, we kind of have to stick to it. So I think it's the hell of a thing that you're doing. I mean, it's a shame that we can't also get access to the checkpoint scheme, because God knows the derogatory bullshit that they're teaching, these abstinence kind of don't do the drugs. You know, you've been here for drugs. Drugs are bad.
I'll tell you a great guy to get on for this then, right? You know Phil Berryman, yeah?
Yes, Healing Cauldron.
Yeah, get him on, mate, because he got busted and they put him through. If you want to know about checkpoints, he got busted and he went for the checkpoint system.
That could be cool.
Yeah, he's told us it was an absolute load of shite as well. But he's Margaret, if you don't know Phil Berryman, I suggest you do a little bit of Googling on him. Very, very interesting guy. He once got away with smuggling in 3.5 ton of weed.
Yeah, we wrote a book. Is it The Wacky Backy Boatman?
Yeah, that's right. If anybody who's listening to this who's in the northeast, if you remember the boat that was slightly offshore on Mount Hartlepool area, where people were going out, getting their duty frees, and then coming back to shore, that was Phil Berryman.
All right, definitely get him on.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, he's a great guy, and I really like the great thing about the Healing Cauldron is as well that excellent customer service. They're right there for everybody who needs them. But they do a hell of a lot of work with kids. So there are a company that I support massively. Anybody who wants CBD, I generally send them either to him or Flora Fusion.
Yeah.
He's on the street away.
I am. I'm almost certain I've had this actually. Hang on, let me see.
It's Berryman with an I. BRRIMAN.
There's an E in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think I've had some of this CBD stuff. I recognize the brand and label. As soon as you said it, I was
we've had him speak and attend with the stall at a couple of the Durham events.
Was it the breakfast? Was it the breakfast that?
Yeah, do you remember the?
At the breakfast at the Durham Expo at Bourburn Hotel. Yeah, in the morning when we had all the infused stuff. I think they provided the coffee and the.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, and Teddy spoke.
Yeah.
His young son Teddy spoke in it.
I think we've got the we've got the video on the Durham City Cannabis Club YouTube page for anybody that's interested. Really good event.
It was funny as hell seeing young Teddy turn around and tell his dad to shut up so he can tell his story.
Yeah, but that's exactly why we wanted those panels and we created those kind of opportunities, was so that we could show the diversity of it. We got together at these events and obviously we all consumed and everybody was happy, got access to plenty of wares, but there was the education there and there was the diversity and there was that. Everything I've always said with the events that I'll put on and have put on is that it's about glimpsing the future. Not what they will give us, but what we can take, what we can fight for, what is ours rightfully, but it's going to take a fuck ton of work to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's potential.
Well, we've already put in a shitload of that work, which is why, I mean, I think it was about 2017, I believe there was a PCC election, and literally every club in the Durham area, we all got together, we all coordinated, we all worked together to get Ron Hogg back into office. That work led to an increased voter turnout and vote share for Ron Hogg.
Quite a large one, if I remember correctly, as well.
Exactly. So anybody who turns around and says this isn't in the public interest, show them figures.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We're told that it's what we're told is the public, the interest of the public that's represented by their politics.
Yeah.
We're not represented in their politics because we dare to do something illegal. We're told that cannabis is bad, yet we choose to.
We're not doing that. We're not doing anything illegal. The illegality has come from their side, not ours. Well, and we have documentary evidence to prove that.
Yeah, but the way they frame it, they still get to use the terms, they still get to use the judicial system, and they still get to incarcerate us. Do you know what I mean? So for their eyes, it's still legal.
Well, that comes back to your argument of people going into court and taking plea deals. Mm-hmm. You know, it's institutionalized gambling. If you take this, we won't hit you as hard. No, fuck you. Get me in front of a jury.
Yeah, but this is exactly why I think your case is going to be so prominent, and why obviously we will feature it, and obviously do write up on the Simpa Life website as well. Because I think that if you can get this precedent, if you can get this positive outcome, then it empowers so many other people to do exactly the same. We're starting to obviously through Seed Our Future standardize the documents and the process by which a person can defend themselves and then appeal this. And then if we can move on to actually through a civil court taking the police on that way, and we can show that we have the evidence to do them, but they don't have the evidence to do us.
Yep.
They won't.
It's game over.
Not only that,
it's game over.
We will have a point of going. If you can basically almost guarantee that, obviously there'll still be a postcode lottery to some degree in terms of whether they can push you into that system or they'll just bully you into that deal. That we could have a mass fucking people just handing themselves into police stations. We could have people implicating themselves in crime just to overwhelm the system.
You know, again, Northern Ireland. Stu and Phil, they have been telling everybody about what's happening with them. You've now got at least a dozen that they've told us about who are going to their solicitors and asking the same questions. Schedule 1, claim of control, misuse. So again, it's just everybody who's getting done, right, give us the evidence that's going to verify your charges. If you can't verify them, you've defrauded us.
Yeah, exactly that. No evidence of a crime means no crime. That is kind of one of the foundational tenements of law. There's a little bit of Latin that Phil Monk likes to repeat that I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm not as well educated as that wonderful man. But it basically means that if the foundation for a law becomes void, the law itself becomes void. And we then take an example of, say, homosexuality being illegal in this country. You look at what sort of happened during that with someone like Alan Turing, who was sort of one of the main individuals responsible for the Enigma machine. And then he was chemically castrated after achieving this great thing because of the legality of this. It wasn't until posthumously, I believe, that the criminality was removed from his record. That we need to understand that this is what's going to happen with cannabis unless we have kind of a Stonewall moment, as it were, and we all fucking stand up to it. And I think what's happening now is the first few people standing up to that barrage of cops. Soon comes the bricks. Soon comes the fucking Molotovs. Do you know what I mean? Verbally, not literally, but in terms of the way we organize and get to this, is we use our power against them.
Yeah, I've seen that in the interview. The two couples, they seemed quite shocked that I wasn't sitting there going no comment all the way through. I was throwing them facts and figures all over the place. They'd never had anybody challenge them. I mean, you're such a defraudness. You haven't been able. Nobody's given us evidence so far of Schedule 1. Nobody's given us evidence of control. Nobody's going to go and checked any of this. Now, you can't even claim cannabis as in its raw form as a Schedule 1 because THC, CBD, and even CBG, which is stem cells of the plant, are so highly antibiotic they kill off AMRSA. And the British government actually fought Schedule 1 in the 50s based solely on antibiotics.
Well, if we look at it now, it's the acceptance of the medical applications because of the removal of Schedule 4 from the 61 Convention, but the inclusion of tetrahydrocannabinols in the 88 Convention, 71 Convention, whichever convention it is, means that even if we remove that, they can still do us for the THC on it. So in Germany, for example, their current system is get the crop, calculate the percentages of cannabinoids, work out the total weight of THC. And if you're over a random threshold of, I think, 7 grams, you fucked, you gone, you going away. So if you were a good grower and your mate who grew that cheesel, for example, one plant with that kind of THC quantity, gone. So they'll still find ways to continue to fuck us, because even if they renege on one convention, they fall back on the other. So there's the 61, the 71, and the 88 one. And each one of them has got more and more nuanced language and is slightly different. And then each variant country, like the UK, tacked on the Misuse of Drugs Act. Misuse of Drugs Act 2001, for example, which allowed us to then sell and profit from scheduled drugs, which up until that point would have been illegal to do so. So we can either keep tacking on all of these legislations, or exactly as you say, and we go back to the foundation and we tear it up. And then once the foundation of the 61 Convention is nullified, everything thereafter is gone. And we have to use the science, the knowledge, and the evidence of today to then go, how do you classify this thing? And the last thing we fucking do is put it through a drug scheduling system. Whatever the pharmaceutical, medical cannabis industrial complex does with it, that has to go into scheduling, because they're going to make it dangerous because of what they're going to do with the nature of it. Whereas the raw plan of its form is benign to the vast majority of people. And those that then have problematic experiences with it are either comorbidly consuming it with tobacco, or they have underlying health or social issues, environmental factors that mean that their consumption becomes problematic. It is not, therefore, in the nature of the plant. So all of their arguments fall flat on the fucking arse. So then it has to be, like I said, as widely available as alcohol, and we just accept the people that have problems with cannabis are the same as people who have problems with alcohol. We provide treatment, we provide whatever, but we don't punish the majority for the minority. And then once we've got that with cannabis, we can get that with every other fucking drug, and we can be done with this shit. And as I did yesterday, I sat with a nice fire and enjoying some acid and a beautiful sunset. I can be as legal doing that as if I was just having a drink. Do you know what I mean? There is no goddamn difference. Well, there is a lot of difference, but in terms of the nuance of this argument, moralistically speaking, there should be no difference.
For the many, not the few.
Exactly. And I think on that point, we should round this up. It's been a wonderful podcast. Trev, I want to thank you as always for your insight. And as I said, just wanted to throw some sort of respect your way for the way you're handling this, because many lesser people would have just kind of gone, oh, well, fuck this. You know what I mean? But you would, I saw you obviously. I nearly turned up to your house at the raid. Luckily, probably not luckily. I was late, obviously, to your house when the police arrived. But then I saw you afterward, the day after, and you were excited. Do you know what I mean? You were genuinely like impassioned and like, oh, I'm gonna get these guys. They've done this wrong, and to watch it be so methodical and to break it down into the procedures and the processes excited me, to be honest with you. And I really genuinely believe that this is going to be something. As I've said to you, I think it's really going to be something. They're either going to have to show that they are entirely ineffectual and incompetent and cannot prosecute, or they're going to show us what their secret backup card is that's going to stop us putting this forward. So we have to then regroup and push back beyond that legislation or act or whatever obscure bit of parliamentary bullshit that it may be. But I genuinely do feel that this is going to be something. So fucking kudos, man. Fucking kudos.
It's the only way to do it, mate. We've got to get in front of courts, which is why that's why I knocked back to decrim. Put me in front of a judge and a jury.
Can we press the fast forward button so we don't have to be waiting 18 months for this to happen?
Honestly, I wish we could. It's boring as I've had a couple of emails through, and I've sent them all my complaints and all the rest of it. Now it's just a waiting game on them. So if they can't present evidence, they can't press charges. It's as simple as that. In which case, I want a compo package for what they've done to my house.
Yep. So either way, it's going to be, like I say, a very interesting outcome. So I look forward to having you back on to let our listeners and viewers know what the hell is going on.
Nothing about that anytime, yeah.
Perfect. As I said, look, Mac is smiling. It's probably not real inside, but it's just because you get to talk to me. That's what it is.
That's it. I'm not intimidated by the cowboy hat this time.
I can dig it out if you want.
I'm guessing that's for a different podcast. Right, folks. Thank you very much for sticking around. This
pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah, that's for our patrons. So do check us out at patreon.com/Simpa Life. That's a good
we got Trev and a Mankini.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do from now on. For patrons, we're just going to ask guests to send us obscure things that we can add to our Patreon and go for this from this guest this week. I like that idea. I fucking like that idea. Right.
You're not getting me in a mankini. You don't.
I'll leave you two to work that one out. Right, guys, check us out as usual on all social media platforms at the Simpa Life. I have been Simpa. He's been Macca. This wonderful guest has been Trev Coleman. Check him out on Facebook. If you add him personally, Trev Coleman, you will see his very distinguished face in his picture. He's forever publishing articles, sharing news and opinions that will make you question a lot of the base narrative that we are told by a lot of the establishment that are trying to, air quotes, reform cannabis in the UK. So do get informed, do get involved, check out Seed Our Future. And if you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe this, and we will see you next week.
Bye. Peace.